Hello, my name is Moshe Shechter, Alma Product Manager, and what I'd like us to discuss for the next hour or so is the courses and course reserves, the way it's structured in Alma, and the way that the workflows related to course reserves management are done in Alma. First, I'd like us to start with a description of how courses and reading lists are structured in terms of the data model. Starting from the course, which is of course the hook onto which everything links to. The course is the basic entity with which we'll be working, and a course is then attached to a reading list, which may be one reading list or optionally more than one. Underneath the reading list there will be citation, at least one citation for a single reading list, although the normal situation will of course be where a single reading list is attached to more than a single citation. So a classic structure would be where a course is linked to a single reading list and a reading list is linked to more than one citation, although variations are possible, such as multiple reading lists being linked to a specific course, or a single citation to a reading list, which would be the less common scenario. In addition to that, a citation may be linked to a record within the library catalog. That is an optional link, so that citations may be linked to a catalog record, but may also not be linked to a catalog record. And in addition, a single catalog record may be linked to more than one citation, which actually would be not such a very rare scenario, where one record is actually used by more than one reading list for different courses. So that is just to keep the structure in mind. As we'll go through the workflow, we'll go one level at a time. We'll start from the course, go down into the reading list, and then look at the citations, which are actually the main entity that is being worked on. So most of the workflow that is related to courses is around the management of the citations themselves. So what I'll do right now is hop into Alma and actually start looking at courses within Alma. Of course, management of courses is part of the fulfillment menu. There's a section in the menu for course reserves where courses and reading lists may be managed, and as we'll see, the citations underneath the reading lists. Accessing this menu that I see here is possible if the user has proper roles, like any other menu option in this menu. The roles that need to be available for the user that is logged in are actually one of two. One is a course reserves operator role, and if we just look at a roles list, so I'll just open a single user just to access the roles list. So we can see that under the fulfillment list there is a course reserves operator role, and a user must have this role in order to access the menu option. And another one is actually the fulfillment services operator. That's another role, with the difference between these two roles being in the fact that a fulfillment services operator is of course a larger role that has access to additional services or menu options, including the options to place requests and such. That as opposed to the course reserves operator, which is limited to managing only courses and reading lists slash citations, but not to options for placing requests and everything that is outside the realm of course management per se. So normally users that will be activating requests as part of a course management process will be given the role of a fulfillment services operator, so that it could also place requests to move resources to reserved areas. Okay, so let's go back into the courses menu, and as we can see, we have two links here. These are actually the only two links that we have in the menu for course management at this time, and one is for management of courses and the other for reading lists. As I said in the introductory section, we'll start from the top of the hierarchy, which is the courses, and go down into reading lists and citations as we go on. So I'll click on the courses link and introduce you to the courses list in Alma. What we're looking at right now is a list of courses that have been registered in the system. This list may actually be created in a number of ways. One, of course, is just by using the Add Course option from here. So if I just click Add Course, we get the courses form where we can manually add a course into the system. We'll go into the fields in here and describe them one by one in just a moment. But just before I do that, I would like to also mention that creating courses is also an option via an API, which the description of is found in the Alma Developers section. So I'm right now pointing at the Alma Developers menu, from where we can have access to additional information about the different web services in the system. And I'm just clicking on the web services to expand that, and on the fulfillment option here to see the list of fulfillment related web services, one of which is the course information web service. This course information web service is actually a very rich one and has a number of methods that can be used with this API. Some of them have to do with management of courses, an API for creating, updating, and deleting a course. And as we go on into our reading lists and citations, the other entities, the lower ones on our introductory diagram, we can see that these are also accessible via the API for create, update, delete of reading lists and for create, update, and delete of citations. So we can create a course from the API, and it's going to actually allow us to create all of the fields that we were looking at when we were looking at the form, which I'll go back to right now. So I'll not describe in detail the API. That's a separate discussion how APIs are used and so on. Just wanted to mention to you that courses may be managed from API, and that may be very useful, since courses are normally managed outside of Alma. They're normally managed in a course management system, so that if that course management system is able to update Alma online using the API, that of course spare you the need to or the trouble of going through a process of creating courses manually in Alma, as I'm describing right now. The API will just do that automatically, synchronizing Alma with the list of courses that is found in the course management system. But let's go back to the form, at least for the sake of describing the fields that make up a course. Of course, on the top there is the code and name fields, but in addition to that there is a section option in here, so that we can create a course, multiple courses with the same code and name, with the uniqueness being mandatory at the level of the code and section. So you can have a number of courses which actually use the same code but have different sections, so that they all are part of one course, just with different sections. Another field that we have in here is the processing department. This is actually the department that will be managing this course, or actually the citations that are attached to this course, that enables separating or actually assigning the different courses to different processing departments within the library. So you have departments that take care of history courses, and others that take care of math courses, and so on. In addition to that, there's an attribute of the academic department to which the course belongs, and many times there will be some correlation between the processing department and the academic department, although of course there is no enforcement of that, and that may be done in any way that the library is internally organized to manage courses. We'll look at some configuration options that have to do mainly with the processing department in just a few moments. First, I would like to go through the rest of the fields in here. There is a list of terms, so that a course may be, of course, linked to some term or to more than one, as I've just done right now. So a course may be running in more than one term, and that may be described in this field. Another field here is the instructor. Actually, this will open up a pickup list of users, of Alma users, so I can search for the instructor that I want to add to my list, and that will actually assign an instructor to my course. At the moment, the only option is to add a single instructor. There are plans to enhance that with the option to add more than one instructor, but currently it's only one, and it's added as I've just described via the pickup list here. The next three fields actually are very important. They have to do with the activeness of a course. There's a status which can describe the course as active or inactive. As you can see, this is a read-only field, and is actually affected by the start date and end date, automatically affected by the start date and end date, which are the fields that you assign when creating or managing a course. So obviously the course will be considered active if the current date is within the start and end date, and inactive if it is before the start or after the end date. Alma will automatically change the status based on the dates. The activeness of a course is a very important attribute and must be managed as a very important one. It affects a number of processes within Alma and actually even outside of Alma. First of which, it affects the way that courses or reading lists will be published into Primo. An important aspect of reading lists is the fact that reading lists are actually published into Primo, so that searching based on course information is possible from Primo. So you can search in Primo based on, for example, a course name or course code, or based on instructor, so that a student may log into Primo and search for the reading list of a specific course or reading lists of a specific instructor. All that is done by Alma publishing records into Primo enriched with course information. In other words, every record, every citation that is linked to a catalog record will have the reading list information, or actually the course information, enriched into the published record when that record is published into Primo. So a record again will be published into Primo with the course information as part of it, meaning that on the Primo side, configurations may be set up to enable searching by course information, faceting by course information, and so on. All that is done in Primo configuration, in Primo normalization rules. What Alma does is enrich the published records with course information. And the reason that I'm bringing this up right now is that this feature depends on the course activeness. A record will be published with course information, enriched with course information, only if the course to which the record is linked is indeed active. In fact, when a course becomes active, a record that is linked to it will be republished with the course information, since until now it has been published without that course information. And vice versa, when a course becomes inactive because of the end date, the record again will be republished into Primo, this time without the course information, which is no longer active and is therefore not to be published into Primo. So that's one aspect of the start and end date that is important to understand. Another aspect is the do-back dates. We'll talk about do-back dates as we go into citations, so I'll just mention briefly the fact that records that are moved around from their permanent shelving location to reserved areas get assigned a date of when these records or when these books have to be moved back to their permanent location. That will naturally be the date when the course ends, when the course expires. So that a physical book that is moved to a temporary location will get its temporary location changed and will have a date fixed to that temporary change of location, so that Alma will know to trigger a process of reshelving back to permanent location on the date that the course ends. We'll talk about that more in detail as we go into citations and the workflow of moving items to temporary locations, to reserves locations. I just wanted to bring this up so that when we talk about this in a couple of minutes, I'll be able to tell you, remember, we saw the end date. That's where this date comes from. So we'll go back to this point. Just wanted to emphasize the fact that it comes from the start and end date. So these are, just to recap, two very important features that are affected by the course start and end date: the publishing to Primo and the due back date of the moved item. The other important fields here are the searchable IDs. That actually enables you to add additional IDs that may be used to search for this record either within Primo or from a course management system into which citation information is also published via the API, and we'll talk about that API in just a number of minutes. The other fields here are not functional, they're informational. So you can attach the number of participants, the weekly hours, and a year to a course. This is not functional, this is just informational. You can put this in, you can skip if you don't want to put it in. Alma does not make use of this piece of information. Okay, so we've looked at the course, and just to recap, the course is the root element. The next parts of the courses infrastructure are all linked to a course, so you must have a course in order to attach to it a reading list and then citations. That's the mandatory hook to which everything links. At least that is the current situation. Okay, we've mentioned the option to create this via APIs, and therefore what I'd like to do now for just a number of minutes is to describe to you also some of the configuration aspects of courses as we've just briefly looked at. So what I'll do now is hop into the fulfillment configuration menu, accessible to fulfillment administrators, this entire menu, and this entire menu includes a specific courses submenu from which courses related information may be set up. You can see that the list of academic departments is something that you can manage from this link. I'll just click into that just to briefly show that. There's not too much in that. You can see it's just a simple code table with the list of codes. You can change description of specific departments. You can also add new ones to this list. Another list in here that is updatable is the list of courses, of course terms. But here there's a little difference that I want to point your attention to, and that is that as opposed to the departments that we've just looked at, the academic departments, this list is a list which you can change. You can change description of codes here. You cannot add additional ones. So the list that is here is intended to be a comprehensive one that includes all the options that you will be needing. The most you can do with this list is change descriptions. So if you would rather use the word term than semester, you can change that. Or if you do not use the spring, summer, winter, and so on to describe the terms, and you use different terms to say that, you can change the description by clicking customize here and just changing the description. You cannot add additional ones, so that if additional ones indeed need to be added, that's something that Xlibris must do for you. The reason for that, by the way, is just to enable better analytics based on the known list of codes. Adding additional codes makes it impossible to create comprehensive analytics based on this information. Another configuration option here is the processing departments. The processing departments are somewhat different from the academic departments in the fact that actually, in terms of Alma, these departments are very much like work order departments. That's why they have a different UI for setting them up, and actually adding a department starts a process, a wizard, of creating a department very much like a work order department. So it takes you into a process of creating a code and a name, and I will not go through the entire wizard, which is a 4-step wizard. It takes you also into the step of setting up linked libraries and operators. Some of this information is not really needed when you're managing a processing department. So let's just briefly look into that. So of course the code and name is something that you must set up. But the work time here is not relevant, neither is the printer or the map. So while this wizard will take you through some fields, many of them are not really required. The libraries is not really required, and the contact information is not really required. This is all an infrastructure that is intended to be enhanced, so it's making use of fields that you do not need at the moment. So just to note and to not have you confused by the 4-step wizard that you have here, most of that information is not really required at this point in time. Okay, I think I've described the courses and the options for managing configurations of courses. Let's hop on into the next element here, which is the reading lists. Reading lists may be created, managed also in more than one way, or actually from more than one option. One option is when we're looking at a course, we can create new reading lists. That's an option here to actually create a new reading list. So that's the reading list option here, which is actually for creating a new reading list. Reading lists, as I mentioned, are always linked to a course. That means that creating a new reading list will only be possible from here, so that you find the course to which you link the reading list, and then you create the reading list. You cannot create a reading list detached from a course. Another option for creating a reading list will be to use the copy reading list option. So if I click on reading list, and we'll do that in just a moment, it will open up a reading list form for us to create a new reading list. But we always have the option to copy a reading list. What this will do is actually open up a pickup list of existing reading lists, so we can take an existing one and attach it to a take one or more and attach it to the course that we are working on, so that we can take a reading list and then we can make changes in the reading list. Perhaps we do not need the exact same reading list attached to the course that we're working on, but we have a reading list that is 90% the same. We want to copy the reading list and just remove the 2 citations that are not relevant for the course that we're working on. So that's what the copy reading list option allows us to do. But the option to create a new reading list actually takes us to the list of reading lists that are currently attached to the course from which we started. You can see, by the way, the 2 ones that I've just copied over. We can see others that have been created here. Many times you're just going to have a single reading list attached to your course, but as we mentioned at the beginning of this session, you may have more than one. What is included in a reading list? Not very much. Clicking work on here will take me into the reading list form, where I can see what's included in a reading list. We can see that the reading list is pretty much some descriptive code and name, and some owner information. The owner information in Alma terminology actually relates to the person that is interested in this reading list. That may be the faculty that is in charge or wants to make use of this reading list. It may be the instructor of the course. It may be somebody else that has been assigned managing the reading list. It may be a library operator. In short, anybody that is that wants to be updated about the status of this reading list and wants to keep track of the reading list. Adding in an owner here is also done from a pickup list, which will take us into the users list. In other words, an owner of a reading list is always a known user in the Alma user management system. There's currently no functional implication to adding an owner here, although there are plans to have functional implications, such as sending notifications about status of citations within the reading list. We've added a citation we've deleted. We have found the citation that you've asked. We're not being able to retrieve the citation that you've asked. We finished working on your reading list, and so on. All kinds of notifications that a library may be sending to the owner of the reading list. Next here, there's a status of the reading lists. Normally, a reading list that is being worked on is going to be in status of being prepared. Once you're done and you took care of all the citations that are in here, you can change this to complete. That will make it easier when working on a bunch of reading lists to be able to filter out those that are inactive, or those that are complete and no need to further process them, or those that are being processed, meaning the citation list is full, but you're still working on retrieving these citations, as opposed to being prepared, which is intended to mean I'm still adding in more citations here, or still reviewing the necessity of all the citations that I have in here, maybe removing some or adding some more. So these are the different statuses. As we'll see, these statuses are intended to facilitate working with a list of reading lists and being able to filter them. Another very important piece of information here on the reading list is the due-back date. We've mentioned the end date of a course when we talked about the course, so that is actually the due-back date in the reading list. It's normally going to be inherited from the course, so if you have a end date on the course and you create a reading list, the reading list is going to take the due-back date from the end date of the course, and it's intended to simply carry on that end date into the citations, which we'll look at in just a couple of minutes. So again, this is intended to say when the reading list is intended to expire. Normally that will be the date that the course is intended to expire, although it does not have to be the same date. Many times a course ends on a specific date, but the reading list is intended to remain active another week or so after the course. So it doesn't have to be the exact same. This due-back date is what's going to be reflected into the items that are moved, as we'll talk about in just a couple of minutes when we talk about the citations and the management of the citations. The rest here is actually the citations, the list of titles that make up this reading list. We'll talk about them in just a minute. So you can see that actually the reading list is a way to bundle a bunch of citations into one bundle with some information that is relevant for all of the items in this reading list, mainly and most importantly the due-back date and the status. Just to mention and to recap what we've mentioned before, reading lists may be created in the way that I've shown you, meaning from the courses menu. It is also one of the options on the web service, an option to create a reading list, update or delete it, option also from the web services. Okay, so we've seen how we can create a reading list. Of course, after we've created the reading list, and we'll look at the citations options in just a minute, just to mention that working on a reading list may also be done either from the courses, as we've just done now. We found a course, and from the course we dived into the reading list of a course. That's one way to work on a course, on a reading list. Another option is via this link, the reading lists link. This is actually a task list of all of the reading lists in the system. Like many other task lists, it is split up into 3 tabs. One, those that are assigned to me, another one, those that are unassigned. And if I'm a manager role, if I have the circulation, if I have the fulfillment services manager role or the courses manager role, I will also be able to see a list of those that are assigned to others, making me able to actually move these records from one assignment to another, and actually assigning somebody else to the reading list in here. So normally, if this method of working with assignments is the way that you want to work, users will actually first go into the assigned to me list, which will normally not be empty. You're working on some list, and be able to filter in based on the status that we've mentioned. So I can filter in only those that are being prepared, and I want to look at the reading lists that are assigned to me, which I still have to work on their citations. I still have to add citations, evaluate citations, and so on, or only of those that are full in terms of their citations list, but need to be processed in terms of digitizing material, moving material to reserved areas, and so on. In addition to those that are assigned to me, I will also be, as part of my daily tasks, also be monitoring the unassigned ones. And if I see some here which are of the type that I normally manage, such as this modern European history one, then I can just start working on it, and by that actually making it be assigned to me, so that nobody else continues to work on this, being that it's going to show up after I do this work on. It's going to show up only on the assigned to me tab when I'm logged in. Nobody else will see that reading list anymore, except for the manager, that will be able to track that in the assigned to others tab. So this is actually intended to enable you working in the assignment mode, where some operators are working on some reading lists, others are working on others, and assignments may be changed. So if I'm working on anything, I will have an option to reassign. So a use case may be where I started to work on this modern European history one, but I ran into some citations in there which are not the ones of a type that I naturally manage, and I know that one of my colleagues is more able to manage the citation. I would like to reassign that so that my colleague can continue processing this reading lists. So in short, it's a task list assignment with assignments. I may start working on something that is unassigned, by that make it assigned to me and not let anybody else work on it. I may at any point change the assignment to one of my colleagues and say, you continue processing this, and this will be the way to work if this mode of operation is suitable. Of course, there's always the other way to work, that is accessing the reading lists from the courses list, as we've seen. Okay, so what's left for us to do is actually start looking at the citations, which are actually the main entity that is going to be worked on. Eventually, a task of the operator is to go through this list, make sure that this list is really what the faculty needs, and make sure that everything on this list is actually made accessible to the students, the consumers of this list. So I can add citations into my reading list, and just to briefly note that this is also possible from the APIs or from the reading list screen. I have three options actually for adding citations into a reading list. One is to add a repository citation, and this is intended to enable me to add a citation which is actually a resource that is owned by the library, is shelved at the library, is a normal library resource, and I just want to mark this resource as serving this course. So I can just add repository citation by clicking on this button, and as I've just done, I hop into a search page where I can do a search, and when I find my results, I can see if this is the citation that I wanted. I can just select that, and by that what I've done is actually added a new citation to my list, and this citation, as I can see, is already linked to a catalog record in my library catalog. Therefore, I can see that the locate status here is marked as resource located, meaning this resource is linked to a real catalog record. And if you remember the introductory slide that I've mentioned, that citations may or may not be linked to a catalog record. So this one is linked. This enables Alma also to show some look-ahead availability here and say this record has a single copy, that's where it's shelved, and that's of course very useful information for the operator working on this citation. This would be the case where I know that something that is being requested by the faculty exists in my library inventory. There may be other situations, such as self-owned resources that are owned by the faculty and are not part of the library inventory. In that case, I'll be using the add non-repository citation option in here. Another scenario where I may be using add non-repository citation will be where I've received some citation and I just want to mark it as part of my citation list. I don't want to start the process of searching now my repository and actually finding the exact series or exact publishing that the faculty is interested in. I just want to mark the title, author, and so on information, put it into my citation list, and later on work on making the match with my inventory. So I just click on the add non-repository citation and I hop into a form that requests me to identify the type of citation that I'll be adding. Is it a book? Is it an article? And clicking on choose will enable me to create some metadata and attach it to my reading lists. So I can add title, author, publisher, and so on. This is all metadata that I can adjust to save, and by that add a non-repository citation to my list. There it is. There's the example that I've added, history example over here. You can see that the locate status here is no resources located, meaning this is a citation that is not linked to my library inventory in any way. I can start from here a process of resource locate, that is, start a process of attempting to link this record to something in my inventory. And again, think about the use case of I have some citation, I want to put it in, and later work on making the exact match with my library inventory. That's about what the resource locate will enable me to do. Okay, the locate statuses is a filterable option here, so I can filter my citations list and look at only those that are not located, and I want to start the process of working on them, and so on. And the third option here is the add brief option. What this option is intended to do is that is if I have some citation that is not currently cataloged as library inventory, but I do want to add it as library inventory, either because it's something that I know I want to make part of my inventory but simply hasn't been cataloged yet for some reason, so I just want to do the cataloging right now, or something that has not been yet part of the library inventory and I want to add it to my library inventory. It's important to understand that as opposed to the non-repository citation, this brief adding actually creates a record that is part of the library inventory, meaning it's going to get published into Primo, it's going to be searchable, and it's not going to be different from any other citation or any other metadata record within the repository. That as opposed to the non-repository one, which creates a citation which is not linked in any way to the library inventory and is therefore not published into Primo and not searchable in the repository search. The add brief one creates something that is really part of the inventory. We'll see that if we look at the form. So again, I have some more options here, more than I had for the non-repository. I have an option to add a physical book or an electronic book. And this results of the fact that I'll be adding not just a metadata description, but also an inventory record. So if I select to add a physical book, and I go on and do choose, I have this option here to put in the metadata like I had for the non-repository citation, but here in addition I have the option to add inventory to actually create an item. So I'm not just creating metadata, I'm actually creating also inventory physical book in this example with some library and some physical location, and actually some barcode as well. Material type, item policy, anything. The result of this will be a real record in my inventory published into Primo that is also linked to my reading list. That is very important to understand. If I would have been clicking on the option to add an electronic book instead of the physical library information that I had, let's just view that. I'm selecting electronic book in this example and doing choose. This time what I have other than library ownership is an option to create a local portfolio. So I'm going to be putting in a URL here, and instead of creating a physical book like I did a minute ago, I'll be creating a local portfolio. And again, it's going to get published. It's part of my inventory once it's been added in. So you can see that as opposed to the history example that I did before, which was a non-repository citation and is not located and has no look ahead, this one that I've added is considered located and has look ahead. It has physical item in my inventory. So these differences are very important to understand and to be able to use properly. Okay, adding citations is possible in this way. One very important thing that I did not mention is that when creating this brief record, we got to the form that we were looking at. There is one more option here that is not currently showing up here because of some configuration, and that is an option to mark this added repository item as a course restricted one. Course restricted means that I can mark the record that I'm cataloging right now so that Primo will be able to make this searchable only when searching a course reserves tab. The way it's going to work and the relevant configuration is done from the resource management configuration menu. I'm looking into the configuration menu here, and I'm going into the other settings option here. And I can see that one of the fields here is the course restricted field, which, as I can see in this setup, is not set up. And just to explain to you how that is done, I'll set it up right now. What I'm doing now is I'm saying that this course restricted indication will be added into a 999 field, subfield A. I'm setting this up for my setup, and what this will mean is that if I set up if I create my record as course restricted, and we'll do an example of that in just 1 minute, is going to create a record with the 99 field subfield A with an indicator in there saying this is course restricted. When this record is published into Primo, Primo will be able to make use of this 999 field to create normalization rules that will make this record be searchable only in a course reserves tab. So I'll just save this setup here. Maybe I need it to be here, $, and if not, then I have some mistake in my syntax. No, I've created this okay now. So let's go back into my reading list. And add a brief one now. you can see that now I have this course restricted label in here. I'll just put in something just for the sake of showing you this in action. I'll create a second title here with the course restricted indication set on. I'll again create this with some local inventory. And this is an important feature, so I'm taking a number of minutes to show you that. And I'm done, remember, with the course restricted indication on. This is my second title. Like before, it's being added to my citation list as a real inventory record, and I'll just look at this record. So I'll click here on the title just to view what it looks like, and as you can see, it's created with a title, second title, that's the 245 field, but in addition there's a 999 field here, subfield A, with this indication course restricted. Now Primo normalization rules have to be set up. They're not set up out of the box. You have to set this up in Primo to use this information to make this be searchable only in a course reserves tab. That is very useful where you add records into a course. You want to make them part of your inventory, but you do not want to expose them to the entire population of searchers in Primo, just to those that are searching for courses. Okay, another way to add citations would be from a search. So if I can just run a search, I'm now in the repository search, the standard search UI, and I find something and I say, and I'm working now on some reading list, I want to add citations to my reading list. I can just, instead of starting from the reading list and doing search from there, I can do a search and then say add to reading list. So clicking on this will open up a list of reading lists that are assigned to me, only reading lists that are assigned to me, and then I can select to which reading list I want to link this specific record. So this enables me to work from the search UI instead of going into the reading list UI and doing searches from within the add repository citation option that we've just seen. Just another way that may be more convenient for others to work with. Okay, what do we do with a citation? So we've run into all the trouble and all the work of creating reading lists because we want to work on them. And what is it that we want to do with reading lists? Of course, we want to make them usable for the students. In other words, we want to make sure that everything we have in here is actually available for the students. Many times what we want to do is choose one or two of the copies that we have for every citation here and just move it to a reserves location so that it will be available for all of the course students. The way to manage that will be from the Manage Fulfillment options in here. So if I'm looking at a specific citation here and clicking on the Manage Fulfillment Options menu, I will see what my fulfillment options are with this record. Being that this specific one has a single physical item attached to it, I see the Physical Services option filled here with the single copy that I have that is marked available. If I had more physical copies, I will have them all listed here. If I had digital files or electronic inventory linked to this record, I would see them here as well, so that I know that this citation I have a digital copy for. I may then, as a next step, if I'm seeing here a physical copy, I may go on to place a move request using the Actions option here to select a specific copy, or a place request option here if I do not want to choose a specific copy and want to let the system to choose that for me. So clicking request here will open up a move request form for me to say I want to move this temporarily to some other location, and that will actually trigger a standard move process, no different than any other move process that may be triggered elsewhere in Alma. You do note that I have an option to either move temporarily or permanently. This will open up a move request form, standard move request form. Do notice the due back date that is being inherited from the reading list. The reading list due back date that comes from the course end date that syncs into the due back date of the request and eventually to the due back date of the item as well. So I can place a move request. In addition, I can place a digitization request and say I have this in physical form, but for the sake of this course I want to create a digital copy of this specific article or essay that I want to make accessible for the course students. So I can choose to place a digitization request, and what I have now is a standard digitization request form, and I can place a digitization request triggering a standard digitization process. So I'll just place a move request to the main library and just submit this move request. Doing psychology experiments, I now have this requested. I get back to my fulfillment options page where I started from. I can see here that my request has been submitted. I can see here some information about this request, and I know that the request now is in process. Actually, this request has been submitted. It shows now on a task list of an operator that needs to pick this from a shelf. So some operator at the main library circulation desk now has this request showing up on his task list saying take this from shelf and start moving it to the required pickup location. And I'm not going to describe in detail the process of picking from a shelf and moving to a temporary location. That's standard fulfillment processes. The result of that will be that when the item eventually ends up, let me just grab the item barcode. When the item eventually ends up at the location that it has been requested, you just do a scan in items and just put in the item barcode and want this in, resulting in the item actually changing its temporary information to be temporarily shelved at the reserved locations that you have asked for on the move request. So that will be the process of moving items to the reserved areas. You look at the citation in the citations list, you place a move request, some other operator in some other library sees this as an action item on his task list, on his pick from shelf task list, takes it off the shelf, wants it in, gets the instruction to move it to the reserves area, and when the operator at the reserves area wants this item in at the scanning interface, the temporary change of location will take effect, including the due back date that we've mentioned before. So the item will now be temporarily shelved at the reserves area with a due back date, which actually the date that the temporary information is expected to expire, the end date of the course. This workflow where I created a request and triggered a process of moving items to the reserved area is not the only way to work. Like so many other aspects of course management, there are a number of ways to work, all standard and widespread. Another way to work actually is, instead of placing a request and actually asking somebody else to pick the item off the shelf like I've just done right now, there may be, and many times there aren't that many staff operators working on courses, so the staff operator is the one that actually goes over to the shelf, picks the item off the shelf, and just does the change like that. In that case, the operator may actually have a list based on the citations list, and if I go back to the citations list to describe this process in detail, I may go back to the reading list, and from here I may print slips, or actually use a print slip report option here, which will export all of my citations with all the relevant inventory information into an Excel sheet, which will enable me to go to the shelves myself and just pick the items off the shelf instead of placing a request for some other operator to process from the pick from shelf task list. So that's another way to work. I can just print the slips or a report from this upper option here and just process this myself, the courses operator. There's yet another way to work on reading lists. Yes, more than two. And that is by using the scan in items change item information option. This UI is intended to be used where the operator has a list, for example, received via some web form or some email or any other way that the faculty is able to tell the library about citations that I'm interested in. This list of citation has not been created in Alma as a reading list yet. It's been submitted by some external web form or some email, and the library staff is aware of this list, but it's not registered in Alma as a reading list. The operator has enough information on that web form to just approach the shelves, him or herself, and get the items without having to first create citations lists in Alma. In that case, the operator approached the shelf, got the items from the shelf, and just now wants to make the temporary change of location, including the indication that this item is attached to a reading list. So I have a pile of books on my desk right now that I've taken off a shelf because I know that I have to move them to a reserved area for a specific course. I will go into the Change Item Information tab of the Scan in Items when currently at a proper location, not the resource sharing library like I'm here right now, but the reserves area circulation desk, and I will fill in the relevant information in here so that I will say the change type is going to be temporary because I'm moving this item as to a temporary location. I'm going to be selecting the proper location, the reserved area. I'm going to be putting in the due back date that I know that these items or the end date of this course is relevant for, and that's the neat part here, I can put the reading list here as a change attribute. After filling in all these fields, I'll just start scanning in my barcodes in the Scan in Barcode field. Each scanned in barcode will, by that, be changed in a number of ways. First, the temporary change of location will take effect. The item will be moved temporarily to the reserves location with the due back that I've assigned here. But in addition, a new citation will be created attached to the reading list that I've selected here, so that the item is not only temporarily moved but also linked to a new citation that is created based on the barcode that I've scanned in. So that's actually another third, if you may, a way to work on reading lists if their input is actually not flowing into Alma but starting external to Alma, and I just want to do the temporary change when I already have the items at hand. Okay, just a few words before we are done. What in any of these situations, the result will be that I have items temporarily shelved at a reserves location with due back dates. What needs to happen now is that the patron, as we've said, is able to search for these in Primo. We've talked about the aspects of that, but Primo is not the only way for a student to find information about the course. Of course, the course management system is probably the primary UI that the student is going to be used. The course management system is able to access Alma using the first here, or the last that we haven't mentioned, web service that exists for courses, and that is the Search Course Information web service. This web service enables any external application, normally the course management application, to query Alma given a known course ID or any other searchable ID that we've mentioned, and to be able to retrieve citation information from Alma. So using this API, the course management may ask Alma for all the citations for a given course, including the open URLs that will enable the course management system to actually access the inventory. So if the course management knows about a course A01, it can ask Alma, give me the citations list for all of the citations that are linked to that course, and Alma will reply with the list of citations, but also with the open URLs, so that the course management system may now trigger a services page to see actually the inventory, the services, electronic, digital, or physical, that are available for this course. It's been integrated with course management systems such as Blackboard, but is general enough to be usable for any other course management system as well. Okay, so now we have everything we need. The student is able to access the course information from the course management system, from Primo. Everything has been moved to the reserves area as required. The last thing that we need to talk about is what happens when the course actually ends. We mentioned that the end of the course will cause republishing of the citation information, so that it's going to be removed from the Primo record. But in addition, utilizing the end date that we've mentioned so many times, Alma will have an automatically executed job that will daily scan these due back dates, and when finding an item that has its due back date has arrived, it's going to place a restore request on that item. These restore jobs are run automatically. You just have to make sure that they're activated for you, but you don't have to worry about them anymore. You do have an advanced tool option to monitor them, so I can see the restore jobs that have run in my system, none in this area here, probably because it is not activated in this environment that I'm looking at right now. What this job will do is that it will place restore requests. Restore requests are standard fulfillment requests that request a temporarily shelved item to be moved back to its permanent location. So the restore request doesn't have any real attributes. It's just say move this back to its permanent location. When a restore request is placed, it's going to show up on task list. That's standard on a pick from shelf task list. When wanted in, the Alma will tell the operator move it to its permanent location, of course telling the operator where that permanent location is. And when the item will eventually get scanned in using the scanning items information, scanning items UI, at its permanent location, the temporary information will be removed and the item will be considered reshelved back at its permanent location. So this actually wraps up the process. We had an item, we moved it to a temporary location, we placed a due back date on it based on the course end date or any other date that we've placed on the reading list. When that date arrives, Alma will automatically place a request to move it to its permanent location, and that will trigger a standard fulfillment process for moving an item from its current location to its required location, in this case its permanent shelving location. I think that's all I wanted to say. We've pretty much covered all of the process, starting right from the process of creating a course, the ways that creating a course may be done, adding reading lists, one or more reading lists, and the methods for doing that, down to the methods for creating citations and for managing the citations in terms of finding out what my fulfillment options with each citation, placing the move or digitization requests, and monitoring the citations from the reading lists UI, down to the last process of exposing the citations in Primo or in the course management system, and eventually also wrapping this up by placing restore requests to move the temporarily shelved items back to their permanent locations. Lots more is still being planned in courses. We still have lots of functionality that we want to add in, but as you can see, that is the end-to-end process that is currently supported. Thank you.